Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every soul's journey when we must face the truth that not everything in this life is meant to bend to our will. There are storms we cannot calm, people we cannot change, and moments we cannot rewrite. Yet within that truth lies a sacred invitation to find peace, not in the control we crave, but in the surrender we resist. Peace is not found in mastering the world around us. It is born when we master the stillness within. Acceptance is the first step to inner freedom, and it is one of the hardest lessons a human heart must learn. We live in a world that teaches us to fight, to fix, to control, to hold tight to everything we desire. We are taught from a young age that success comes from domination, that peace comes when everything falls into place exactly as we wish. But life, with its divine rhythm, does not always follow our plans. It moves as it must, not as we command. To accept this truth is to begin the journey toward freedom, because when we stop resisting what is, we stop living in constant struggle with reality. Acceptance is not weakness, it is strength. It is not surrendering in defeat, it is surrendering in wisdom. It is the courage to see life as it is and still find peace in it. When a person begins to accept, something beautiful happens inside them. The heart becomes lighter, the mind quieter. Acceptance removes the heavy chains of expectation and disappointment. We stop blaming ourselves for things beyond our control. We stop blaming others for not meeting the image we created of them in our minds. We begin to see people as they are, moments as they are, and ourselves as we are. Acceptance allows us to breathe again. It is like opening a window after years of being locked inside a room of resistance. The air that flows in may not be perfect, but it is fresh, real, and cleansing. There are times in life when we are faced with pain that feels unbearable. A loved one walks away, a dream collapses, or a door closes that we thought would always stay open. Our first instinct is to fight against it, to ask why, to demand answers, to try to turn back time. But life keeps moving forward, and the more we resist, the more we suffer. Acceptance teaches us that we can live through pain without letting pain define us. It teaches us that we can feel sorrow and still remain strong, that we can lose something precious and still keep our spirit whole. The act of accepting does not erase the wound, but it allows healing to begin. When you accept, you are no longer at war with yourself. You stop the endless battle between what you wish would happen and what actually is. The energy once spent on resistance becomes energy for growth. You start to see that the world is not against you. It is simply unfolding in its own mysterious way. You learn that not every closed door is a punishment. Sometimes it is protection. You learn that not every delay is denial. Sometimes it is preparation. Acceptance helps you trust that life knows what it is doing, even when you do not understand. It teaches you to step back and watch the greater design unfold, to find beauty even in the unknown. There is great peace in saying, I accept, not because you have given up, but because you have decided to stop fighting against what cannot be changed. You begin to realize that your peace does not depend on the outside world, but on the stillness within you. Acceptance allows you to reclaim your power. You stop being a victim of circumstance and become a student of life. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can I learn from this? The shift is profound. It changes how you see yourself and the world. In acceptance, there is understanding. You start to see that every experience, even the painful ones, holds a lesson. Every heartbreak reveals something about love. Every failure teaches something about strength. Every disappointment shapes your patience and faith. When you accept life's lessons, you begin to grow in wisdom. You start to appreciate the journey rather than obsess over the destination. Acceptance opens your eyes to gratitude. You begin to notice small joys, quiet moments, and gentle blessings that were once hidden behind the fog of resistance. It takes humility to accept. The ego wants control. It wants things to go its way. It wants perfection. But the soul knows that perfection is not found in control. It is found in balance. The soul knows that peace comes from flowing with life, not fighting against it. Acceptance is the voice of the soul whispering, "Let go and trust." It is the wisdom that reminds us we are not the masters of the universe, but part of something far greater, something divine. When you practice acceptance, you align yourself with that divine rhythm. You move in harmony with the flow of existence instead of thrashing against it. Acceptance also transforms relationships. When we accept people for who they are instead of who we want them to be, love becomes purer. We stop trying to change others and start seeing their humanity. We stop demanding perfection and begin appreciating sincerity. Acceptance invites compassion into our interactions. We realize that everyone is doing the best they can with the understanding they have. We begin to forgive more easily because we see that just like us, others are learning too. When we accept others, we free both them and ourselves from the burden of unrealistic expectations. In accepting ourselves, we find the deepest peace of all. So many of us carry shame, guilt, and regret. We replay old mistakes, old words, old wounds. But acceptance says, you are human. You did what you knew at the time. You can learn, you can grow, and you can still be whole. Self-acceptance is not about ignoring flaws. It is about embracing all parts of who you are with compassion. It is standing before your reflection and saying, even with my scars, I am worthy. Even with my past, I am enough. This is where true healing begins. When you accept yourself, you stop seeking validation from others. You stop chasing approval. You start living authentically. Acceptance is a practice, not a single act. It must be chosen again and again, especially when life feels unfair. There will be days when acceptance feels impossible, when you want to scream at the sky and demand a reason. But those are the moments when acceptance matters most. It does not mean you stop feeling pain. It means you stop letting pain control you. It means you breathe through it, trust through it, and keep walking forward. Acceptance is a discipline of the heart, one that grows stronger every time you choose peace over resistance. Sometimes acceptance is quiet. It is sitting in silence after the storm has passed, not rushing to move on, but simply being. It is realizing that the pieces of your life may not look the same as before, but they can still form something beautiful. It is finding stillness in the middle of uncertainty. It is learning to rest in the mystery without needing every answer. Acceptance allows you to live with open hands instead of clenched fists, to receive life as it comes. Those who live with acceptance are not easily shaken. They know that the tides of life will rise and fall, that seasons will change, that what is meant to be will find its way. They walk with calm hearts because they trust the timing of their journey. Acceptance gives them the power to adapt, to find meaning in both joy and sorrow. It is not about liking everything that happens. It is about being at peace with the truth that everything has a place in the larger design. Acceptance is the soil where faith grows. It is the space where love deepens. It is the breath that quiets anxiety, the light that softens anger, the grace that replaces fear. When we learn to accept, we become free. Free from the illusion that we must control every outcome, free from the noise of what should be, free to simply be present, grateful, alive in this moment. Acceptance is the key that unlocks the door to inner peace. And once that door opens, The soul begins to remember its own strength, its own calm, its own divine connection to everything that is and everything that will be. Let go of what drains your spirit and embrace what nourishes it, because the truth is, not everything that touches your life is meant to stay. There are people, habits, and thoughts that once felt like comfort but have now become weight. There are memories that once gave warmth but now only keep you tied to pain. And yet, we hold on. We hold on because we fear emptiness. We fear change. We fear the silence that follows release. But the silence is not a punishment. It is space being made for peace to enter. Letting go is not loss. It is liberation. It is the moment when the soul whispers that it is time to stop feeding the things that drain it and start seeking the things that make it bloom. The spirit knows when something no longer serves it. You can feel it in your chest when your peace begins to fade, when your laughter feels forced, when your dreams begin to dim under the shadow of worry. But instead of listening, we often fight against the message. We tell ourselves to endure, to hold on longer, to wait for change that never comes. We think letting go means giving up, but it means giving yourself permission to breathe again. It means honoring your energy, your time, your heart. You cannot fly if you are holding on to what is trying to leave. Letting go begins with awareness. It begins when you start to notice how certain situations make you feel, when you recognize how your body tightens or your thoughts grow heavy around certain people or patterns. Energy never lies. When something drains you, your spirit knows. When something nourishes you, your spirit expands. You feel light, peaceful, alive. This awareness is the compass that guides you toward your higher self. It teaches you to trust your inner knowing more than the voices around you. It reminds you that your peace is sacred and not everyone or everything deserves access to it. Letting go also requires courage. The courage to walk away from what is familiar, even if it once felt like home. The courage to release the narrative that tells you your worth depends on how much you endure. The courage to stop pouring your energy into spaces that never pour back into you. Many people stay in places of pain because it is what they know, not because it is where they belong. The unknown feels frightening, but that unknown is where renewal lives. The unknown is where your spirit can finally rest and grow. When you let go of what drains you, you reclaim your energy. You stop scattering pieces of yourself in places that do not honor you. You start bringing that energy back into your own soul. You begin to heal, to create, to rediscover the parts of yourself that got lost in the noise of trying to please, trying to fix, trying to hold on. Letting go is not always an action you take. Sometimes it is a shift in your heart. It is deciding that you will no longer chase what runs, that you will no longer beg for what is not aligned with your peace. It is choosing stillness over struggle, clarity over confusion, self-respect over attachment. There are seasons for holding on and seasons for release. The tree does not cling to its leaves when autumn comes. It lets them fall because it knows that in losing them, it makes room for new life. You, too, are allowed to shed what no longer fits your growth. You are allowed to release people who only show up when it's convenient, habits that keep you small, and fears that silence your potential. When you do, you make space for the divine to work in your life. The universe cannot fill hands that are already full. Sometimes the delay in your blessings is not because you are unworthy, but because you are still holding on to what is blocking your flow. Letting go requires trust. Trust that when something or someone leaves your life, it is not the end of your story, but the redirection of it. Trust that what is meant for you will never require you to betray your peace. Trust that the emptiness you feel after letting go is not loneliness, but sacred space. That space is where healing happens, where new beginnings form. It is where your energy can rest and rebuild. Every time you let go of what drains you, you rise closer to your authentic self. You stop being pulled in directions that weaken you and start walking toward what strengthens you. Embracing what nourishes you is the other side of letting go. It is not enough to release what hurts. You must also invite in what heals. Nourishment looks different for everyone. For some, it is time in silence. For others, it is laughter shared with kind souls. It may be a walk under the open sky, the sound of music that stirs your spirit, or the practice of gratitude that then grounds your heart. Nourishment is anything that reminds you of who you are when the world forgets to be gentle. It is found in truth, in love, in presence, in moments where your soul feels full rather than empty. When you begin to embrace what nourishes you, your world shifts. The same sunrise that once went unnoticed now feels like a gift. The same solitude that once felt lonely now feels peaceful. You begin to choose differently, not from fear, but from alignment. You begin to spend time with people who uplift you, conversations that inspire you, and environments that feed your light. You stop apologizing for needing peace. You stop explaining why your boundaries matter. You learn that protecting your energy is not selfish. It is sacred. There is power in knowing that you have a choice. You can choose what you give your time to. You can choose who you allow into your energy. You can choose what thoughts you entertain. Each choice either drains or nourishes your spirit. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that our energy is endless, that we must give until we are empty. But peace comes when you realize that your energy is precious and must be directed with intention. When you start choosing what nourishes you, you begin to experience life differently. You see beauty in simplicity. You feel gratitude in moments of stillness. You find joy not in what you gain, but in what you protect within yourself. Letting go of what drains you also means releasing guilt. Guilt is one of the heaviest burdens that keeps us tied to the past. You are not responsible for carrying everyone's weight. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. There will be times when walking away feels cruel, but staying will cost your peace. And peace is too high a price to pay for the comfort of others. When you choose to prioritize your spirit, you are teaching the world how to treat you. You are setting a standard that your well-being matters, that your light deserves to shine freely. The act of embracing nourishment is also an act of gratitude toward life itself. When you fill your days with what strengthens you, you honor the gift of your existence. You start to notice the divine in ordinary things, the laughter of a child, the rustle of leaves, the softness of the evening air. You begin to live from your heart instead of your wounds. The world may not change, but your way of seeing it does. You become more compassionate, more grounded, more alive. Nourishment is not always grand or loud. It is quiet, steady, and kind. It is the gentle rhythm of a soul that has learned to protect its peace. Letting go also asks you to forgive. Forgiveness is not saying what happened was okay. It is saying you no longer wish to carry it. You release the grip of anger and resentment that keeps you bound to pain. You forgive not because others deserve it, but because you do. Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to fall. Forgiveness cleanses the spirit. It removes the weight that drains you from within. When you forgive, you make room for light to return. To let go and embrace what nourishes is to live in alignment with your truth. It is the difference between surviving and truly living. It is waking up each morning and asking yourself what feeds your soul today, and then having the courage to follow that answer. It is understanding that peace does not come from controlling the world, but from choosing what energy you allow into yours. When you let go of what drains you, you make space for miracles to find you. You begin to attract people and opportunities that match your energy, your growth, your purpose. You move from chaos to clarity, from confusion to calm, from exhaustion to renewal. The process of letting go is rarely easy, but it is always worth it. It is peeling away layers of attachment, fear, and illusion until only truth remains. It is standing in the mirror and seeing yourself not as broken, but as becoming. It is learning that healing is not a straight line, that some days you will feel strong and other days you will tremble. But even on trembling days, you are still moving forward. You are still choosing your peace. You are still honoring your spirit. And that, more than anything else, is the essence of freedom to live in a way that feeds your soul rather than drains it. To walk through life light, whole, and unburdened. Trust that every unanswered question still holds divine purpose because life often speaks in mysteries rather than explanations. And the human heart, in its longing for understanding, tends to wrestle with the silence between what we know and what we hope to know. There are moments when we pray and the heavens stay quiet, when we plan with all our might and watch those plans crumble before our eyes, when we ask why with trembling voices and no voice replies. It is in these moments that trust is born, not from certainty, but from surrender. To trust the unanswered is to believe that the absence of clarity is not the absence of purpose, that the silence itself is a form of guidance, and that the divine, in all its wisdom, works not only in what we can see, but in what we cannot yet comprehend. Every unanswered question in your life is a teacher, even if it speaks softly, even if its lesson comes slowly. When we do not understand why things happen as they do, we are being invited to expand our faith beyond what our minds can reason. Life unfolds like a tapestry. From the back, all we see are knots and tangled threads. But when we step to the other side, the design becomes clear. The unanswered questions are those knots, those tangled threads that confuse and frustrate us. But each one plays its part in creating the full picture. We must learn to stand still in the midst of uncertainty and trust that the divine is weaving something far greater than our current understanding can grasp. Sometimes we mistake unanswered questions for abandonment, as if the universe has turned its back on us, but that is never the truth. The divine is always near, especially in the silence. The silence is not an absence. It is a pause. A sacred moment of preparation. Just because a door has not opened yet does not mean it is locked. Sometimes it is still being built. Patience is the proof of trust, and trust is the language of the soul that believes even without seeing. To trust the process of life is to accept that divine timing operates beyond human calendars, that what is delayed is not denied, and that every question we hold in our hearts is already known by the divine before we even speak it. The unanswered questions are where faith grows its roots. Faith is not tested in the sunlight of certainty, but in the midnight of doubt. It is easy to believe when everything is clear, but real faith is forged when the path is hidden, when all you have is a whisper saying, "Keep going." Each time you choose to trust without understanding, your spirit strengthens. You begin to see that peace is not found in knowing all the answers, but in trusting the one who does. The mind craves explanations, but the soul craves connection. And trust is that sacred connection between human fragility and divine wisdom. Trusting the unanswered also means trusting yourself. It means believing that you are exactly where you are meant to be, even if you do not know why. Every experience, every delay, every heartbreak, every confusion is shaping you into who you are becoming. Nothing in your life is wasted, not even the waiting. The waiting refines you, teaches you to listen deeply, to be still, to discern what truly matters. The unanswered questions carve space within you for wisdom to enter. They soften pride, they teach humility, they open your heart to compassion. When you no longer rush to fix everything, you begin to experience the beauty of surrender. And in that surrender, peace begins to take root. There is a divine rhythm in life, one that does not always align with our plans. We want answers now, resolutions today, clarity this very moment, but the divine moves with eternal patience. What seems delayed is often divine protection. What feels lost may be being prepared to return in a better form. When something does not make sense, it may be because its meaning belongs to a future chapter, not the current one. The divine never wastes a season, even the silent ones. Trusting this truth frees you from anxiety and allows your heart to rest in the assurance that purpose is unfolding even when you cannot see its pattern. The unanswered questions also remind us that control is an illusion. We spend so much of our lives trying to force understanding, trying to plan every outcome, but life cannot be fully grasped by human logic. There is a divine intelligence that orchestrates even the smallest details. The sunrise, the tide, the bloom of flowers all unfold without our control, yet perfectly in time. If nature trusts the rhythm of life, so can we. The same force that guides the stars in the sky guides your journey too. The same wisdom that spins galaxies is present in the timing of your life. Trusting that is the highest form of peace. When we stop demanding answers and start listening for guidance, something miraculous happens. We begin to hear life differently. We start to notice signs, a word from a friend, a moment of intuition, a quiet peace that tells us to wait a little longer. The divine rarely shouts, it whispers, and those whispers often come in the stillness between our questions. When you learn to be comfortable in that stillness, you learn the language of faith. You realize that not knowing everything does not make you powerless. It makes you open. It allows grace to flow in unexpected ways, to show you that even confusion can be holy ground. Every soul has its share of unanswered questions: the why, the when, the how. Why did this happen to me? When? Will things change? How will I ever get through this? These questions can weigh heavy on the heart, but the truth is that sometimes the answers would not serve us even if we knew them. There are things that must be lived, not explained. There are lessons that can only be learned through experience, not revelation. The divine protects us, not just by giving, but sometimes by withholding, by allowing us to walk by faith and not by sight. This is not punishment. It is preparation for deeper wisdom. In trusting the unanswered, you learn patience. Patience is not waiting passively. It is waiting with faith, with open hands and a steady heart. It is saying, I do not understand yet, but I believe something beautiful is forming behind the curtain. You begin to see time not as an enemy, but as a companion. Time reveals what haste hides. It allows growth to mature, wounds to heal, and paths to clear. Every unanswered question is a seed, and seeds do not sprout the moment they are planted. They rest, they root, they grow unseen before they rise. So too does purpose in your life. There will be moments when your heart aches for closure, when you wish for signs, for direction, for some certainty to hold on to. In those moments, remember that uncertainty is not the absence of divine care. It is the canvas where divine artistry paints its most profound work. You are being guided, even when it feels like wandering. The unanswered moments are not voids. They are sacred intervals where your spirit learns resilience, faith, and stillness. When you stop demanding answers, you begin to discover wisdom that words cannot contain. You begin to feel rather than know, trust rather than control, flow rather than resist. Trusting the unanswered questions is an act of courage. It is standing in the storm and saying, I may not know what comes next, but I know I am not alone. It is believing that your steps are guided even when the path is hidden. It is surrendering your timeline to a wisdom that knows what is best for you, even when it defies your expectations. This trust does not make life easier, but it makes the heart stronger. It teaches you to live in partnership with the unknown rather than fear of it. It teaches you that not every question deserves an answer. Some simply deserve faith. There are seasons in life when the silence is long, when prayers seem unanswered and dreams seem distant. In those seasons, do not lose heart. The seed planted in the dark does not think it is buried. It is being prepared to grow. Your unanswered questions are not signs of divine neglect. They are evidence of divine trust in your ability to grow through uncertainty. You are being shaped in the waiting, strengthened in the silence, refined in the not knowing. The divine is not absent. It is working behind the veil, weaving purpose into the very fabric of your struggle. When you look back one day, the moments that confused you most will make perfect sense. The unanswered questions will become answered prayers. The detours will reveal themselves as divine directions. The pain will show itself as preparation. What once seemed meaningless will shine with purpose. But until that day, trust the process. Trust that every step you take, even the uncertain ones, are leading you exactly where you are meant to be. Life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a journey to be lived, and every unanswered question is part of that sacred unfolding. Peace begins where control ends because the human heart was never meant to carry the weight of the entire world. Yet we often try to manage outcomes, predict the future, control people's choices, and manipulate time to fit our plans. We cling so tightly to our expectations that we forget the simple truth. Peace is not found in the grip of control. It is found in the release of it. When we let go of the need to direct every detail, when we stop fighting the current of life and allow it to flow as it will, the stillness we have been chasing finally finds us. Peace is not a prize to be won. It is a natural state that emerges when we stop struggling against what is. Control is rooted in fear, fear of loss, fear of pain, fear of the unknown. The mind convinces us that if we can control enough things, we can protect ourselves from hurt. But control is an illusion, a fragile armor that cracks the moment life refuses to obey our plans. The truth is, life does not need our permission to unfold. It does not ask whether we are ready, whether we approve, or whether we understand. It moves with its own rhythm, its own intelligence. The rain falls without asking, the seasons change without command, and the stars rise without supervision. To live in peace is to accept that we are part of that same divine rhythm, not the conductor of it. When we surrender control, we rediscover trust. Trust that there is a greater force guiding the unfolding of events, even when we cannot see its design. Trust that the delays are not denials, but divine timing. Trust that what is meant for us will not pass us by, no matter how uncertain the path appears. The mind wants answers, but the heart wants rest, and rest only comes when we release our grip on what we cannot govern. Control drains the spirit because it demands constant vigilance, constant worry, constant effort to hold together things that are not meant to be held. Surrender, on the other hand, restores the spirit. It allows you to breathe, to exist without the weight of managing every outcome. Peace begins when you stop fighting with life. You stop demanding that it look a certain way. You stop resisting the truth of what is. You begin to flow with the present moment instead of trying to rewrite it. Every time you let go, you create space for grace to enter. You open the door for divine intervention, for unexpected blessings, for a gentler rhythm. When you stop forcing, you start receiving. Control closes the hand, peace opens it. Control says, I must. Peace says, I trust. Letting go of control does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means acknowledging that there is a difference between what you can influence and what you must release. You can control your choices, your effort, your attitude, but not outcomes, not timing, not other people's hearts. Peace comes when you recognize that boundary. The energy spent trying to manipulate the uncontrollable can be redirected toward nurturing what is truly within your reach, your character, your gratitude, your perspective. You begin to live with wisdom rather than anxiety, action rather than agitation, surrender rather than struggle. When you stop controlling, you begin to listen. You start hearing the quiet voice within, the intuition that speaks softly beneath the noise of fear. Control often drowns that voice because it is rooted in overthinking, in planning, in constant doing. But peace is born in listening, listening to the rhythm of your breath, the language of your heart, the gentle signals of your soul that tell you when to act and when to rest. When you live by control, you push against the natural current. When you live by peace, you float with it, guided by something larger than your own plans. Life often teaches surrender through disappointment. When what we planned fails, when the path we chose collapses, when what we thought was certain suddenly vanishes, the illusion of control breaks. It is painful, but it is also sacred. It is in those moments of breaking that we begin to see clearly that control was never peace, only pressure. When life rearranges what we thought we understood, it is not punishing us, it is freeing us. Every time something doesn't go as planned, something better aligned with our spirit is being prepared. The loss of control is not chaos, it is recalibration. There is deep peace in saying, I don't know, and that's okay. The ego resists uncertainty, but the soul finds freedom in it. The unknown is not a threat. It is a canvas. It is where possibility lives. When we stop needing to control every brushstroke, we allow the masterpiece of life to paint itself. Control narrows life into our limited vision, but surrender expands it into divine creativity. When you release the need to dictate every outcome, you open yourself to miracles you could never have orchestrated on your own. Control often shows up in relationships. We try to change people, to mold them into our expectations, to make them love us in the way we imagine love should look. But peace in relationships comes when we stop trying to rewrite others and start accepting them as they are. You cannot force understanding, you cannot demand connection, you cannot manufacture love. What is genuine will stay, what is forced will crumble. When you stop controlling people, you allow real connection to form one that is based on freedom, not fear. Love flourishes in open hands, not clenched fists. Control also shows up in how we view our past. We replay what could have been, what should have been, what we wish we had done differently. But the past cannot be managed. It can only be accepted. Peace begins when you stop trying to rewrite history and start finding meaning in it. The moments that broke you also built you. The things you could not control shaped the wisdom you now carry. Every event, no matter how painful, had a role in bringing you to this moment. The more you resist the past, the more it controls you. The moment you surrender to its truth, it releases its hold. The need for control often comes from the desire for safety. We think if we can control enough things, we can avoid being hurt. But safety built on control is fragile. True safety comes from trust. Trust in yourself, in your strength, in the divine timing of your journey. Peace does not mean life will never hurt you again. It means you will meet every hurt with calm, every uncertainty with faith. Control says, I must protect myself at all costs. Peace says, I am protected even in the unknown. When you begin to release control, your body changes. The tension in your shoulders softens, your breath deepens, your mind quiets. You begin to live in rhythm with the moment instead of racing ahead or clinging behind. Control lives in the future and the past. Peace lives only in now. The present moment is where life actually happens, but control steals us from it. Surrender brings us home. It brings us back to the here and now, where grace is always available, where strength is renewed with every breath. Letting go of control does not mean you stop caring. It means you start caring differently. You move from anxiety to intention, from fear to faith. You still take action, but you release attachment to results. You still dream, but you stop forcing the timeline. You still love, but you allow others to be free. You begin to move through life with open hands instead of clenched fists. And in those open hands, peace settles like light. It does not rush. It simply is. Control makes you tired. It demands constant effort, constant defense, constant proving. But peace is rest. It allows you to trust that what is meant for you will come, that what is no longer for you will leave, that the rhythm of life knows its way. When you live in control, you are always running. When you live in peace, you are always guided. Control isolates you from the flow of life. Peace unites you with it. There is wisdom in releasing the illusion of control, because the more we try to manage everything, the more we realize that very little was ever truly in our hands. The rain falls when it must. The heart heals in its own time. The right people arrive not because we forced them, but because we aligned with who we are meant to be. The divine does not respond to control. It responds to openness. When you stop controlling, you start aligning. When you align, life begins to move through you instead of against you. The practice of releasing control must be renewed daily. Every day, the mind will tempt you to take back the wheel, to fix, to worry, to plan beyond what is necessary. But every day, you can also choose surrender. You can pause, breathe, and remind yourself that peace is not found in perfect plans, but in perfect presence. The more you practice surrender, the more natural it becomes. You stop forcing outcomes and start trusting timing. You stop chasing certainty and start embracing mystery. You stop controlling life and start living it. There will be times when you forget, when fear grips you again, when the urge to control rises like a tide. In those moments, return to your breath. The breath is the most honest teacher of peace. You cannot force it. You can only allow it. It flows in, it flows out. It does not cling, it does not control. The breath reminds you that peace has always been inside you, waiting for you to let go. Peace begins where control ends, where the grip softens, where the spirit releases its need to manage, and finally rests in the truth that all is unfolding as it should, even when you cannot yet see how